Hello, everyone. This is Owen Infinity with Wolverines for Justice podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we'll be talking about women in sports and the adversity that they face in sports today. Today, we have guest Emily Leyson, who is on the women's soccer team, to speak from her perspective and just to share some things that she's experienced and that she's seen in women's sports. Something that I can't personally relate to. Being a men's athlete, it's definitely something that we don't face. It's something that needs to be heard of more. I think that women face a lot of adversity in sports that isn't talked about. And I think that people need to recognize that things need to change. So here's Emily Leyson with some of her experiences and her thoughts.
I'm a sophomore on the women's soccer team here at Michigan. And today I'll be discussing what's like to be a woman in sports today. So overall, I would say that being a woman in sport is a privilege, and I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to do it. Title IX is something that has really helped us women get equal treatment in sport, but as we know, with some of the lawsuits going on about pay in professional sports, we still haven't really reached equality, and that's something we're working towards. However, in terms of collegiate sports, I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to play a sport in college and to continue my passion for another 4 years. Overall, I think Michigan does a great job on treating male and female athletes equally when it comes to budget and food and educational resources. I think all of those things are very equal. And I appreciate that from the Michigan Athletics a lot. In addition to that, being a woman in sport, I think it's just really amazing to do. But when you watch the game, you will see there's a big difference in the style and speed of play, which is just going to happen. However, I think sometimes people see it as being less than the men when it's just different. For example, in soccer, our speed of play is slower and a bit different, but that doesn't mean we are less skilled or talented than them by any means. It's just a different style of play because women and men just in general have different attributes in terms of speed, strength, athleticism, all that stuff come into play. And that's not discrediting the men at all on what they do in their sport. So I think that's an important thing to note too, is that men and women have very different styles of play when it comes to soccer, but in addition, like baseball and softball, very just different styles on the type of game when it is kind of the same variation of game. In addition, I'm just so grateful to be allowed to have this opportunity because I know women weren't always allowed to compete in sports, especially in college. So the fact that the world has evolved to the point where women now have equal opportunities to follow their dreams, to pursue professional sports, is just amazing in itself. However, the job's not done there. The world, politics, legislation, teams have to keep pushing better and doing more to still get that equal treatment for women. Like I mentioned before, the U.S. women's national team for soccer had a lawsuit against people who pay them and who own the USA women's team about their unequal pay with the men's team, even though they are more successful in their league and their division. They're 4-time world champions, I'm pretty sure, and they still get paid less than the men do, which is just something to point out on how even though it's amazing that women are in sports and can be incorporated and seen as strong, athletic, physical athletes when stereotypically women aren't seen as that. I think the world can still do better to work on the aspect of equal play, equal pay in terms of men versus women because, yes, the games are different in soccer. They're faster, different styles, different opponents. It's going to look like a different game when you watch it. However, the pay should be equal because they're both putting in hard work to get where they're going. It takes commitment and hours long of practicing on both sides, and they should be paid the same. The U.S. is an example. However, a more drastic example is like in Europe where soccer is very big. And the professional men's team, some of the players who are the stars of those teams are getting multi-million-dollar contracts, whereas some of the women are barely making over $100,000, which is not a lot of money in retrospect if they're raising a family and they're the sole breadwinner of the family. So it's not about women in sports. I'd say it can also relate to just stereotypes, because when it comes outside of college, you're going to have professional sports in which the men are not always the breadwinners of the family, which emphasizes my point before of how important it is that people, athletes, politics, legislators continue to fight for that equal play, equal pay campaign that the U.S. women's national team is suing their compensation people against. So overall, to wrap it all up, I would say I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity to play as a woman in sport and continue my passion for the next 4 years. I'm so grateful that Title IX had come along in order to get us the equal treatment, allow women to be strong, athletic athletes who deserve to get attention and be watched and have highlight videos just like the men's do. But there is still work to do, and not discrediting to anyone, but I think everyone can improve in some aspect. So overall, that's what I would say. Thanks for listening to me a little bit about my view on women in sports. That's it.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Emily. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciate your insights and thoughts. I think that today a lot of people need to be more aware of the adversity that the women face in sports, and people need to make change. I think change needs to happen, and there needs to be more equality in sports. A lot of the things you talked about are a lot of really important current issues, and people need to act on these issues. That starts with us. I think that everyone can do their part by making sure that women have equal opportunity in sports, and that starts with kids and the young age, and getting them into sports and making sure that women have equal opportunity. So that's it for our podcast today. Thank you so much for listening. Please tune in to our next podcast to be posted very soon. Please like this video and subscribe, and follow us on all social media accounts and Instagram and Twitter. We're looking forward to the next episode. Thanks.